Today's Ink It Up tutorial, I'm going to color some snails from the Snailed It stamp set by Stampin' Up. I'm going to do so with the new basic white cardstock. And at the same time, I'm going to cut out pieces of our original cardstock. I don't know if it's the original. I've only been around for several years. But I will compare it to the cardstock I currently have, which is called Whisper White. Now the Whisper White has retired. So in a way, you might be saying, it's a moot point, right? But it isn't to me because I have stocked up on so much Whisper White. And I'm really curious to see how it compares to this new basic white cardstock. I want to tell you my first impressions as I promised I would do. And we're going to be using this no matter what because we have no more producer for the Whisper White. So that's okay, but I still am going to keep it real and tell you how it works. So this is 12 by 12 basic white cardstock. Let's pull that out. And then I'm going to pull out a piece of Whisper White. Now I can already tell, and you probably can't because of my lighting, but this is a little bit different in color. Let me see if I have an extra. do have an extra light here. The Whisper White seems like it's a little bit, more off-white. I don't know if that extra light, that extra light might help. It can't hurt to have more light when you're doing a video. All right, so I'm using, by the way, we have two kinds of paper. This is Whisper White. See how it's a little bit more off-white? And the new basic white is more, I would say it's whiter. So I'm going to be able to tell them apart very easily. Now I'm going to feel the thickness, and I feel like they're the same thickness. And they're also, both have sort of a glossy finish. So we will take these out. And I'm going to just go ahead and trim up a couple pieces here just for us to use. And what I'm going to do is just make cards. So when I make cards, I always make the same pieces for the front of the, well, I don't always make the same, but I'm doing something like this with my cards. I'm not actually going to make the whole card here. This is more about the coloring technique. And I will do I'll use Memento Black and some blends, but I want to put some snails maybe in the middle, and I can always trim these down smaller to fit them at the top and bottom. I don't know the weight of the paper, but it's probably on the website. I'm just using the regular Whisper White cardstock. It doesn't, we don't actually, ours never says the weight of the paper on it. Nor does it matter. They're both the same. I mean, it doesn't matter to me because it's still going to work the same with my scan and cut either way. It's the same thickness. Yeah, I'm using basic white. This is basic white. This is Whisper White. See the difference in color? The Whisper White is a little bit more off-white, kind of, heading toward vanilla. This is the basic white, is stark white. I'm going to lay them side by side, and I'm going to color with them. I'm going to stamp the same thing and color with both of them because I'm really curious. I just got these. I'm actually really curious to see how they compare. And I know others might be curious too, even though we are going to be, I don't want to say stuck with the other one because we're never really stuck, right? I'm sure Stampin' Up gave us a good product to use. So what I like to do is I use the 12 by 12 regular weight. I don't use the thick Whisper White hardly ever. I don't make cards with white cardstock. I make cards with different colors of cardstock and make white liners. So let me just make, these are just going to be 5 1/4 inch by 4. Just my standard. Okay, so that's basic white, Whisper White. I'm going to do another one just to have them extra in case I mess up my stamping. Then I can get rid of this paper trimmer and I have more room on my table. Alright, so when I stamp, I like to use my little silicone mat. I'm just going to move those over. So that's basic white, Whisper White. We'll put that there. And I'm going to just put the silicone mat underneath it when I stamp it. So I'll show you everything. In my Ink It Up series, I like to talk about how to mount stamps and how to do everything start to finish. And so we'll make this big snail at first, and then I'll do the Happy Mail snail in a little while. We'll try the paper out with Bermuda Bay too, because I'm curious as to how this will absorb the different ink colors. But right now I'm just going to see how it absorbs the black Memento Black ink, and I want to see how it absorbs the blends. So really, I'm going to, just going to be doing some experimenting in this video, as I promised I would do. Okay, so here we're going to ink up I'm going to open the Memento Black. I'm going to ink it up. And after you ink up your stamp, it's good to always stamp it onto your mat first to make sure it's really inked up right before you waste it. See, before you waste your paper, because if it's not inked up right. But that could be because it wasn't on the yeah, there you go. That's a perfect one. It could also be because it wasn't on the sponge. You bought the stamps and paper too, the snail mail? Hey, I got some people here. Wow, I got lots of you that came in while I was looking away. So hello, Janet, Christine. Okay, let's see. Kate, Jane, Nicole, Carol. And if anybody knows the weight of the paper, that was the question. So if you know the weight of the paper, please answer that question. So I'm stamping on a basic white for my very first time. Okay? Now my ink, looked like it got really dark there, but I think that's just because I put a lot of ink on the stamp, as you could tell. Now we'll do Whisper White. And I'm also going to, I'll do it again with the other piece there too. Okay, so far so good, the same. Yep. Good ink absorption. No, it's not running. I don't know if you recall last week. Here's Basic White again and Whisper White. Last week when I tried to stamp onto that pearl paper, pearlescent paper, and that ran all over the place. So there are different papers have better ink absorption. Okay, this is Basic White. Yep, it comes out better the more times you stamp. And Whisper White. When you have a stamp that's bigger, when you have a stamp that's bigger than the actual stamp, then I always do it. Okay, 110 pound. Thank you, Carol, for the weight of the paper. I'm using the regular Whisper White. I don't know if that matters. All right, so good. We will use the second set. So far now, I'm gonna do a couple things just because I'm an experimenter. I like to tinker. One thing I like to do is just I want to see if these rub. Okay, so that's Whisper White. No, and no. Okay, and there is sort of that little smooth finish. So I'm glad it doesn't smear. Whew, glad it doesn't smear. Regular Whisper White and the new Basic White is 85 pounds. Okay, good. Thank you. I'm not using thick Whisper White. I'm using regular, so it's 85 pound weight. Okay, now let's do some coloring with the Stampin' Blends. Now, the reason I took out a couple sets of Stampin' Blends is you might only have this one. You might only have this one here, which is called Petal Pink. It's a good snail color. When you color with the blends, it's good to use the dark color first. And you can use I'm using the thick side because it's pretty wide. Of course, I probably should have used probably the thin side. So it's running a little bit, but that's probably because I should have used the thin side. Okay, so let's go get the other piece. That's why I did take another piece and see if it was me not being able to see because I wasn't close enough. Let's get this piece. This is still Basic White. I'm not tricking you. It's just that I should use the thin side of the marker when I do the stalks. Because otherwise I don't know if it ran or not, right? Because I don't know if it's just because I couldn't see very well. Okay, so far so good. So what I do is I use the thin side. I use the dark marker first. And on the really small parts, I'm going to use the thin side of the marker. I'm using Petal Pink, by the way, Petal Pink. And I go all around with whenever I blend, I use the outer. I color the dark side first on the outer edge. And then I take the lighter Petal Pink and I do circular motions. It blends the dark color and the light color together. Okay, I do see a little bit of blending going on. It takes a little while because as you over time as it dries, it blends a little better. Now I have these other pinks which I like better for my snail, but they're retired. These we don't have these anymore. They're called Pink Pirouette. It's a fun snail color, but that's okay. This one goes really well with those new little boxes I got, these new little treat boxes. Okay, now I'm going to go and do the Whisper White just because I want to see if it's any different. Shouldn't it be, but you never know. I mean, so far it's not smearing. The ink looks like it's going on the same way. And I could do the second one faster now that you saw my technique. Okay. Good, good, good. Now it's important when you do, the outer part, you always do the outer part first with the darker. All right, so good. Now I'll make these little guys blue, these lines. Okay, oh, actually I can do them later, but I'm going to make them Bermuda Bay. So let's make the snail itself yellow. I'm going to, a type of yellow called Daffodil Delight. So again, it's kind of harder to do the outer edge of a snail. So instead I just go like this. I just kind of go around on like, you know, like the little swirl, kind of like that. And then maybe a little bit around the edge, more like that. Not a big deal because it's harder to blend these little sections. But I still want to go around the outer edge in dark. Something like that. And I'm going to take my light Daffodil Delight. Again, I can use the thick side. And you might be wondering why I'm not doing both dark parts at once, both snails. You only color one section at a time or one snail at a time because alcohol markers dry really quickly. And if you move on to the second snail and do all like the dark parts, then by the time you get back, the dark parts are too dry and it's too harsh and too hard to blend. Okay, so that's good. Now I'll do this snail. I still use the thick side. It's pretty thick though, isn't it? I didn't mean to put it on that thick. Yeah, for the middle part. I can maybe use the thin side. There we go. I mean, so far it's good. I mean, it's not really any different except that it's brighter. So far I don't see any difference. It's not smearing. It's working the same sort of way. Now I'm using light Daffodil Delight. And why Daffodil Delight? Well, because it's a coordinating color with the Snail Mail Suite. So the stamp set I'm using is called Snailed It, but it's part of the suite called Snail Mail, and it's my favorite suite, and that's why I'm doing some coloring with it. These are going to turn into welcome to the team cards to welcome new team members. That's what I'm going to put a bunch of extra snails on these cards. They're going to have little snails that I cut out with the Scan and Cut because this is like Scan and Cut Dream here. These are so easy to cut out with the Brother Scan and Cut these patterns. All right, so I'm going to put a bunch of snails on the page. And I'm going to take the Bermuda Bay. Okay, I don't remember if I used dark or light, so I guess I can just go ahead and try it and see what happens. I think we can always try it with the light and always go darker later. So I think I'll try light Bermuda Bay. Yeah, that works. Bermuda Bay again is a coordinating color, and so is Real Red. And I'm going to make the little gift in Real Red because of the coordinating color. No blending when the areas are too small. Don't blend them, just color them. Okay, so. And you always, I did the yellow or like the Daffodil Delight first because if I messed it up, I can cover it up with the Bermuda Bay. So like if it runs over, I mean, not really mess it up, but if it runs over into the middle lines, then I'm using the darker color. As if I use the darker color first, then I might have smeared some of this into the yellow, to the lighter color. Okay, so far so good. Now we're going to do the gifty. The little present on top, we'll use the dark Real Red. And we'll go around the little present here. He's delivering some happy treats here. Awesome. And the light Real Red, circular motion, blending it in. If you have any questions, ask each other. I know there's a lot of other demonstrators online all the time here, so you can help answer each other's questions because I can't always look when I'm coloring and stuff. That blended really nicely, actually better than normal. Maybe it was just my technique, but it seems that one blended like instantly. You want paper that has a little bit of a glossy finish like this paper. So you might be saying, you know, you're trying to watch me and you see some of my tutorials. You're like, I stamp like you do and my stamps don't come out like yours. It's because you're not using the right paper. My upline told me at the beginning, it's going to make the world of difference when you use the right paper. And that's why I've really enjoyed Whisper White. I panicked when they said it was retiring and I went and bought, you were only allowed to buy 2 per order. I bought so many packs of it, I'm good for like months now. But still, I'm going to have to use this eventually, so I wanted to make sure it works. All right, so let's look at a close-up. I have a bunch of lights on here, so hopefully you can see. So this is the basic white, and that's the Whisper White, and I don't really see any difference. And it's going to get better over time as it dries. Like I can, this little harshness here, I just take the lighter, or this is my lighter Daffodil Delight, and to get rid of that harshness, I just do some more blending. Or just let it dry and it won't be as harsh. But I think it's looking good. And in a way, I think that even blended a little bit better. But that's just, again, because of my technique. You just never know, you know, how much ink flows on there. All right, so far so good. Okay, so I'm happy with that. And then what I would do is, I would have to trim these down, but one of my techniques for making cards is like presenting the designer series paper. Like I would trim this down so it wouldn't get into the way of the snail, and trim that. I'd put a couple little pieces of designer series paper. I'd get a bunch of my little happy mail snails, happy mail things. I have bucket of crafty good. I call this my bucket of crafty goodness here. I always have a bunch of stuff cut out. I might put some other snails on there. This is, I think, Blushing Bride color. We don't have Blushing Bride in, this is a little snail from the new add-on kit for the paper pumpkin. He'd be cute on there too. We have these little dies. Super cute little dies that you can make little tiny envelopes with. They're little stitch dies. But I'd put a bunch of snails on here, and I'd put Welcome to the Team stamp. I don't have all that because I wasn't planning on doing that part. But I will show you now how to just use a different color and stamp that. So that's what these two cards are going to be. I trim them down, and then I put them on a different card base. A card base that would be either Bermuda Bay or Real Red, and it looks really cute. And I showed it in one of my recent videos. I'll show you a couple other cards I have going on too as well. All right, so far so good. Now let's take another color. Let's put this here. This is a piece of, well actually we'll just use this one. This is a piece of basic white, and this is a piece of Whisper White. And let's use, instead of using this piece of Whisper White, I'm going to use one that I messed up because my trimmer wasn't sharp. I had to change blades. So this is Whisper White, this is Basic White. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to compare what it looks like to use this color, to use a color stamp, Bermuda Bay. Okay, because I'm still experimenting. I'm trying out my new Basic White for the first time. And we're going to use the Happy Mail stamp. I have a couple cards to show you that are finished that I created with the suite too, that I'll show you after I show you this couple stamping techniques. So I'm going to mount the Happy Mail stamp onto a stamping block. And I'm going to open my Bermuda Bay. And this time I can ink it up this way because it fits. It fits on the stamp, so I can actually ink it up by tap, tap, tapping. And then I always stamp onto my mat first. Happy Mail enclosed. Looks good. Okay, we'll do it onto the Basic White first. Ooh, very nice. Came out very nice. Let's do it onto the Whisper White. Ooh, both of those. I usually don't get such good stamps my first time around. Okay, what I'm going to do with those is I'm going to use the rectangular postage stamp punch, and I'm going to punch those out. It's a coordinating punch. This punch is from the annual catalog. Even though this Happy Mail or this Snailed It stamp set's from the new mini catalog. Okay, I'll do a couple more of them. I think that came out really good on both papers and on my first try. Usually, well, probably because I used the stamp before. The first time you take a stamp out of the case and you try to stamp with it, sometimes it doesn't always come out like really crisp like that. But it really helps having the silicone mat underneath it. Okay, so that is the basic. Whenever you use a punch, always do your stamping near the top of the page. I mean, near the side of the paper. I mean, because you're using a punch. Because if you don't stamp near the side of the paper, you won't be able to get your punch in there to punch it out. It won't reach. Okay, and I'll do one more on Whisper White. Just because we want to make sure we get consistent results. Not just good results, but consistently good results. Awesome. Okay, so the last thing I wanted to try is, I'm going to keep this out. I want to try taking the same Bermuda Bay and seeing how it works when you emboss a little piece of cardstock. So let's emboss a little piece of cardstock. We might have to shut this ink because I have to cut some more, because if you have the ink open when you're trying to cut something. Again, I'm using the 12 by 12 basic white cardstock. 12 by 12, just got it, just opened it up. It was only available starting January 5th. And because I'm using the mini trimmer, I'm just going to make a little 3-inch wide piece. And I'll just go ahead and make it a square. I'll make it 3-inch by 3-inch. Just make it a... Okay. So I'm going to have a square of basic white. And then while I'm here, let me see if I can't get a square. I guess I have to take out the Whisper White, because I don't have any cut. I don't think I have any cut. So this is Whisper White. This is the original paper, or one of our original papers. It's our last paper before this retired. I'm just going to make a little square. But that way when we emboss them both, we're going to see how they work with the new blending brushes. I love using the new blending brushes. And the reason I picked this color is not only because it went with my suite, I'm using Bermuda Bay, it's because it goes again with the snail mail suites. Again, see that color difference? The basic white is whiter than the Whisper White. All right, so we're going to take out the mini trimmer, which I have a mini embossing machine. It's just super cute. It's portable. Mine's already open, but it's portable. Okay, this mini cut and emboss machine just became available to customers this month. All right, I'm going to follow my instructions. Okay, it says this is so I have embossing folders. And let's see if I have a standard embossing folder. And we have, if you're going to be using a 3D embossing folder. All right, let me see if these are standard or 3D, the ones I'm using. I just picked some that fit in the mini trimmer here. So I'm picking greenery embossing folder. No, that's not going to go with snail mail. So greenery is not going to go with snail mail. So because there's too much flower. It might go with the snail mail, but I'm going to go with this other. I'm going to go with this one. This will go with it here. We're going to use this cute one here, wrapped in texture embossing folder, and it's standard. If it's 3D, it would say 3D. Right? Both of them are standard because it would say 3D if they're not. And you could tell because the 3D embossing folders are much thicker. So standard embossing folder. So let's get rid of plate. We don't need this plate 4 because it's for 3D embossing folders. Okay? We only need plate 3. We don't need the cutting. We don't need these at all. We don't need these cutting plates. All we need is our basic plate 1, and which I love about our embossing. I love our embossing machine. Everything's labeled for me. I have to cheat sometimes. So we need plate 1. We put that down. That's like the base plate. We put the embossing folder next with the little piece of it. We're going to do the basic white first. Actually, they might both fit in there. Let's see. Ooh, how nice is that? We can do them both at once. We're going to put the basic white in there first, and then followed by the Whisper White. We're going to put them in the embossing folder. And always send it in hinge first. Put that down. Okay, and then we're going to put the number 3 on top. Okay, I stagger them a little bit. Never put them in straight. Never put them all in flat together because they'll get stuck. Always stagger them very slightly. So that's the sandwich. Although I would probably like to put my handle. I'm right-handed, right? So I like to turn this around so that I can roll it through. Right, this way. With my right hand. But it goes in both directions, and you can... I could have cranked it with my other hand. It would have still worked. Okay, let's move that little machine away. Hopefully the camera didn't shake too much to make you guys dizzy. All right, and now we have our embossing. Okay, so we're going to see how it embosses. It was a little close to the top, so that part. See, you see how the seam doesn't emboss, but I think it did a great job, and they both emboss the same. But how does it absorb sponge coloring after it embosses? That's the question, right? When you're experimenting, you have to follow through. So it's not just does the paper crack, does it do that? It's how does it absorb the ink? So let's take the Bermuda Bay again. And with the blending brush, I like to, here's the blending brushes. I love this. You could dip it into the ink, but what I like to do, just so it's not so much ink on my blending brush, is I like to dip my my stamping block into the ink, and then I kind of control how much ink is going on my blending brush, right? And I also like to sort of rub it on my mat a little bit first to make sure that it's not too dark, right? So that's good. See, if it's too dark, then it's not going to work for me. And then I like to do it like that. Okay, and you can usually go in one direction or back and forth. Oh, I love that ink absorption. That's nice. So again, I tap it down there just so it's not so harsh. Because if you tap it right from the ink right onto your paper, it's kind of harsh sometimes. Meaning it goes on, like you get this big blob on there. But if it doesn't matter, like if you're going to put a snail in the middle anyway, like I'll probably put this on a card, but I'll put a snail in the middle. So you could, and if you're going to be covering up the middle anyway, you really could rub it onto the ink. See how that I mean? It gets that blob on there, which I hate, but it's okay because I'm going to cover that part up. If you're going to cover it up, I mean, it doesn't matter. But if you're not going to cover it up, get rid of that harsh blob by putting it down there. Okay? So that's the technique, and let's do it now with the Whisper White. Okay? Again, I'm covering that up, that big blob, so that's why it doesn't matter. So tap it into the ink, and then I'm going to rub it on my brush, get rid of the harsh spot, and then sort of, I'm just going to go outwards. So this one, yeah, I mean, it's the same because I'm rubbing a different, yeah, I think they're both absorbing the same. Both working nicely. So this just adds like another whole layer to your paper, and you can put a little frame around it. Put a little snail in the middle of it. We'll put a snail on just to kind of cover up that middle part to show. Oh, cripe. I almost said something bad online. I should have rubbed it on there first. Okay. That's okay. You just do, if you mess it up, like that one's messed up, I would just take it and punch it out. I don't want that big blob on there. Cute little elements for your cards though. That one we can fix. Again, never go straight from your ink onto your paper, because if you do, it gets that harsh big blob of ink on there. Oh, I like that. That was Whisper White. All right, so this one, so say I was going to cover up that spot, and let me just get a little bit of ink on that side. And you can also use the mat, you know, to get rid of that blob of ink when you first put it on there. I just love using these brushes though. They're really fun. And then you could take one of your, I'm just going to take a snail out of my bucket of crafty goodness and show you what I mean by putting it on, covering up that blob with it. I'm going to make this into a card. I'm very happy with how this blended and how that came out. Super happy with that. So yes, for the blending brushes. And then the only thing I haven't tried is the sponging brayer. The sponge brayer. I'm just using Stampin' Dimensionals. Regular Stampin' Dimensionals and a mini Stampin' Dimensional. And that is why you would use that nice texture and nice layers. You have another layer for your card. So yeah, Basic White is rocking. I'm happy with it. It has good ink absorption for colored ink, for sponging, for alcohol markers, for black ink. I don't know about watercoloring yet. We haven't tried about watercoloring. You had a dream about me, Janet? Oh my gosh, how cool is this? I asked you for Advil. Oh my goodness, I love this. This is funny as heck. You know what? You're probably watching my videos before you fell asleep, and that's why you had a dream. Anyway, I got my sponge brayer just to try. So we'll have a little piece. Let's see if I still have a piece. This is the Basic White again, and this is the Whisper White. So I'm just going to take, even though this isn't a color that coordinates with the Sweet necessarily, this is going to be Calypso Coral. I just want to see how the sponge brayer goes on here, just out of curiosity, because that happens to be the sponge that's near me. So this, again, this is not a color for the Sweet. This is just Kim experimenting. I got to read that more about that later, Janet. That's pretty funny that you had a dream about me asking you for Advil. That's so funny. I probably was. I probably had like my back hurt from all the crafting I do. So anyway, I'm just rolling. To use the sponge brayer, I just roll onto the ink. Or you could, again, you could use the technique of putting it on the stamping block. But I'm just rolling it straight on the ink and then on the ink pad, and then I get a little bit off on there, on the mat, and then I can sponge color. I'm just seeing how that works, and both of those work the same, so that's good too. Yeah, both of those are sponging just fine. So yeah, so far everything I do all the time is working fine. I sponge color, I use stencils all the time, I use ink and punch out things all the time. I use brayers. I'm going to start to use these. I'm going to try to collect these for every color because I don't want to wash them. You could wash them, but I don't want to have to wash them. I know that this is Bermuda Bay. I might also label it Bermuda Bay, but I don't want to have to wash them. So I'm going to try. It took me like a year to get my stamp ink collection up. So now I'm going to try to get my collection up for these brushes. It's going to probably take me a year to get enough brushes for every color. All right, so back to snail mail. Back to snail mail. I have a couple examples to show you. Again, the reason I would do this is I'm making some cards that are going to say, you know, welcome to the team, with some little pieces of designer series paper there. But I also wanted to just show you while you're here, let me reach for the catalog 1 second. I just want to show you about this suite, especially a couple things I made with this snail mail suite, which is part of our new mini catalog. So if you need one of these, please use the link in the description. You can download the PDF now. I'm still mailing these out for a little while anyway, in the US only. So you can request it. Here we go. This is the suite. You can request a catalog if you're in the US at my website, linked in the description of this video. So I've done a video, maybe a couple so far. I know I at least did one video on how to cut out the little snails from this designer series paper using the scan and cut, and this is what that would look like. So that's why I have a lot of snails, and I'll show you a couple cards made with that. Is that a cute suite or what? Super favorite of all suites. I can't cut into this paper right now because it's for my designer series paper share, which is going on right now, but I can show it to you. I just can't cut it up. We can't create a whole card ourselves, because if I cut this up, I'm going to be short one person's paper share. I know it. I still will be doing paper shares. I just have to order your paper if you do any shares at this point, because everything is accounted for. All the paper I have in my stash is accounted for. People ordered the shares ahead of time, but you could still order a paper share. I know, don't you love it, Susan? So the coordinating colors, Blushing Bride. Oh boy, now I'm going to forget it. Where's the paper? Blushing Bride, Basic Gray, and Bermuda Bay, Daffodil Delight, Real Red, and Whisper White. You already know about the Real Red. I've already showed you the Real Red. You've already seen me use the Bermuda Bay. Another cute paper. All papers double-sided. This reminds me of when you were doing penmanship in elementary school, although the lines are crooked. Those little dashed lines, and you had to try to keep everything in the lines. Super cute mushrooms. And hearts, right for Valentine's Day. This is good. I'll be doing a lot more with this suite because I just love it. And you'll be seeing a lot of pictures soon. I think I'll do a little video of this paper from my Instagram because I think I want to show this paper. It's just so awesome. I want to show off this paper before I cut it apart, into 6x6 sheets. This looks like little postage stamps. Okay, and last one is mushrooms. Okay, now I'll show you my cards. And I like that the little thought balloons are in a couple languages. Okay, so here are my projects I created. And here's all the coordinating products. The little dies make these tiny little envelopes, which is super cute. And I put them on a card. Okay, so this little snail here is from the add-on for the paper pumpkin kit this month. There's a little add-on kit, and the snail mail is going to coordinate with that add-on kit. So the little snail dies make these little tiny envelopes, which are super, super cute. And they make these little tiny stitched. You can cut out the designer series paper and put them in the envelopes, the little letters. Okay, so I'll show you what I did with that concept. Here's a card I did. I took that concept of cutting out the envelopes with that stitched dies. Here's the dies again. That little tiny envelope die makes these little tiny envelopes, and that's what you can do with it. And this is what you can get when you cut out the snails with the scan and cut. So the only stamping I did for this whole card was Happy Meal enclosed, when you saw how I did that with the Bermuda Bay. And this was Whisper White, by the way, because I didn't have the basic white at the time. This is Blushing Bride and cardstock, and this is the designer series paper. I don't think there's anything on the inside. Nothing on the inside. This is a Blushing Bride card base. Okay, a couple more snail mail cards. This is Pink Pirouette. And that's why I said I think my snails look better in that color of pink. But the reason I didn't color in that color of pink today is because you might not have had this color of pink. It's a retired color of pink. So that's why I used petal pink for these two snails, because that's what's currently available. And we also have Light Flirty Flamingo, which looks kind of cute too, because we don't have Blushing Bride blends. Say that 3 times fast. Okay, so that's just a little gatefold card. We had this meeting on Zoom, and it was called Mystery Stamping, and we had to cut out all the pieces ahead of time, and everyone's cards came out differently. Like mine opened like this, someone else's opened up like this, someone else made a card like this. We all used different designer series paper. It was so cool to see how the whole team had different cards and how they all came out differently. And here's when you take your mushrooms and you can layer them with your scan and cut by putting a piece of cardstock behind them for that extra pop of mushroom, the pop effect. Okay, so those are just some ideas what you can do with the Snail Mail Suite. I hope you enjoyed this first look at Basic White, and now I can recommend that you get it. It definitely works just as well as Whisper White. In fact, it's the same. I can't really say which one's better. I do like that it's whiter, because it is, this to me borders on, it's getting closer to the vanilla. Like this one, the Whisper White, I do like that the Basic White is whiter. That's nicer to me. I like stark white like that. I think it makes things pop better. And I like how it's, has good ink absorption. I think it does fine for embossing, fine for blending, fine for sponge coloring, fine for brayer. And, I do highly recommend it. And go, you have my seal of approval, Stampin' Up. Not that you care, because it's already out. Like I said, it's a moot point because we've already selling it. So it's available now at our store. We sell it in cards, in cardstock 12 by 12. We sell it in thick 8.5 by 11, regular weight 8.5 by 11, mini envelopes, memories and more note cards and envelopes, and regular envelopes, medium envelopes. All right, well, that's all for now. This is the Paper Chef, and thank you for watching today. And sorry I didn't get to say hi to all of you, but I'll go read all your comments later, and especially about Janet's dream about me, which is hilarious, because in her dream I was asking her for Advil. Anyway, it's all good. We have fun on this channel. That's all for now. This is the Paper Chef.